right, thanks, Scotty. Interesting piece of history for you tonight. We are uncovering a piece of history that many may not know about. During World War II, England asked the U.S. government to help with the housing of prisoners of war.
They simply couldn't handle the numbers. So we brought in Don Nelson to join us and tell us how Idaho then stepped up. I didn't know any of this.
You know, America took in close to 500,000 German prisoners of war, thousands ending up here in the Gem State, a place known as Camp Rupert.
As Allied forces made their way across Europe and North Africa looking to choke the Nazi regime, thousands of captured German soldiers were headed the other way.
They were shipping them all to England because France was still in the war. You know, that was the only one that didn't have German occupation, and they were being overrun.
So much so, they kept heading west, across the Atlantic, to dozens of camps here in the U.S., to places
like this large piece of property just west of Paul, Idaho, housed some 4,000 POWs from Germany and Italy.
Ann Schenk, the former curator of the Minidoka Historical Museum, remembers Camp Rupert quite well.
My father-in-law actually had some of them on his farm working, because they worked the farms around here because all the guys were gone, all the boys were gone, all the farmers were gone, so they needed help with planting and harvesting and everything else. So that's basically what they did.
Something they did for 3 years, from 1943 to 1946. So why have so many of us never heard the stories?
After World War II, everybody wanted to forget.
But think about this for a second. There were 172 buildings, including a field office, hospital, barracks, mess halls, chapel, commissaries, and recreational facilities.
The interesting thing about the camp in the United States is that the POWs received the exact same medical, dental, health care that the GIs did, and they got paid.
Newspaper coverage of the camps and public knowledge were intentionally limited until the end of the war, in part to avoid fear of an enemy presence on American soil.
So all the buildings were sold off, the land was sold off, just like they did with Hunt Camp. And if you know what to look for, and you drive around even in Twin Falls and here, you will see some of the barracks, but they've changed a lot. Some of them are homes now.
And like it began, that's how a silent chapter in Idaho's history ended.
Wow.
Yeah, and what's also interesting, we have heard of the Japanese internment camps.
Right.
There's one in Minidoka, one in Minidoka, but not the German POW camp.
Honestly, I didn't know anything about it until you started researching. And then the question I have now is, do we have any idea, did any of the Germans ever come back to the United States or come back to Idaho?
That's a great question, because they were treated quite well here for a POW camp, as you saw. They got medical care, they got paid, they had libraries, they could watched movies. But in 1946, months after the war ended in Europe, they couldn't just send them back because of the transition that the Allied forces had to do in Europe. So they stayed here, I think, about another 6 to 10 months, and then they were all just shipped back. There's only record of one person coming back to visit, of all of those POWs. Yeah.
Maybe it's just the only record.
The only record.
Right.
Now, if you know anybody that came back,
Be fascinating.
It'd be fascinating to find out. Give us a call. We'd love to hear about it.
It's a good story.
Thanks for that piece of Idaho.